Hello, and welcome to the National CMV Foundation's virtual celebration. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Kalia Fleming, and I am proud, honored, and privileged to serve as the Executive Director of the National CMV Foundation, the largest national nonprofit advocacy organization focused on congenital CMV. Incorporated in 2014 and co-founded by John and Kristen Spytek, the National CMV Foundation's original mission was to educate women of childbearing age about congenital CMV. In 2015, the organization joined forces with three amazing entities doing wonderful work in the CMV space: Maddie's Mission, Stop CMV, and the Utah CMV Council. Together, these entities strengthened and fortified the work of the National CMV Foundation, setting a wonderful and strong precedence and a really solid foundation that we've been able to leverage and grow to what the organization is today. Thank you to our co-founders for their dedication, their love, and their support. In 2021, the board of the National CMV Foundation met to update the 3-year strategic plan and to revise the mission of the organization. The current mission of the National CMV Foundation is to prevent pregnancy loss, childhood death, and disability due to congenital CMV. During today's presentation, or today's celebration, I shall say, you will hear and learn of all of the successes and wonderful achievements year to date that have been achieved by the foundation. I first want to say thank you so much to the CMV community for continuing to support the work of the foundation, increasing awareness about congenital CMV and who we are as a whole as the organization. None of these successes and achievements would have been or could have been possible without your support. Thank you. Please do keep in mind that you can stay abreast and up to date of all of the wonderful work, events, and activities that the foundation is leading and spearheading by staying tuned to our very active social media channels. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to learn more and to stay abreast and up to date on these activities.
Hey there, you've got Zach
and Karen Argoni
tuning in from Houston, Texas. We're happy to be a part of the organization's first ever virtual celebration. And our CMV story began when we became CMV parents to our son, Leo. We're active members of the CMV Foundation, and I sit on the board of directors as the treasurer for the organization.
And Leo was born with congenital CMV, and he was almost 2 years old before he received the diagnosis. Now he is 8 years old, and while he is significantly affected by the virus, he is one of the most determined little boys you'll ever meet. He loves being in trains, planes, automobiles, anything that moves, loves the iPad and his big sister, Gabby. And this journey is not easy, but it sure does help having a loving and caring CMV community to sit with us on what can feel like a roller coaster ride at times.
We want to thank everyone that's part of the CMV organization, from the board, the employees, to those who donate, and all of the volunteers. You really make a difference with this organization today and in the future. And as part of this virtual celebration, I'll be playing a few songs that really mean something special to me on this special day.
If you ever find yourself stuck in the middle of the sea, I said the word to find you. If you ever find yourself lost in the darkness you can't see, I'll be the light to guide you. Find out what we're made of. We are called to help our friends in need. You can count on me, love. 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you, life. 4, 3, 2, you'll be there. 'Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah, do. If you're tossing and you're turning and you just can't fall asleep, I'll sing a song beside you. If you ever forget how much you really mean to me, need it, I can count on you like 4, 3, 2, you'll be there. 'Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. Ooh, you can count on me 'cause I can count on you.
I am super proud of all of the great work that the staff has put in to help achieve these successes to date. Our governing board, our associate board, our CMV community alliance chairs, and again, all of our volunteers and the CMV community as a whole. We have achieved a lot year to date, and I could not be more proud. So, what are some of these successes? Well, for one, we've been able to increase our staff, which certainly helps us to meet the onslaught of deliverables that we are tasked with to continue the great work and the mission of the foundation. I'm super excited about that as I work with some amazing individuals. Thank you to the National CMV Foundation internal team and staff for all of your great work. Additionally, we've been able to grow our board. Where there was 9, now there are 12. We have amazing governing board members. This is a perfect time to shout them out and tell them thank you so much for their dedication and hard work in helping to move the mission of the organization forward and help with strategic planning as a whole for the organization. Kristen Spytek, John Spytek, Megan Pesh, Sarah Dutre, Zach Ragoni, Suresh Bapana, Sally Parmar, Daniel Kinkle, and Mary Uran, thank you. And to our newest governing board members, Dr. Stephen Padron, Stephanie Grassi, and Cedric Pritchett, thank you, thank you, thank you for all of your dedication and hard work as board members. I also want to give a huge shout out to our associate board. Our associate board began in 2021, and we are privileged and honored to work with these young up-and-coming professionals to continue to increase awareness about the organization and congenital CMV as a whole. Patricia Purcell, Emily McDonald, Patrick Fleming, Jennifer Jinks, Katie Feistel, Shane Gaffney, Jessica Wright, thank you, and thank you so much for your work and commitment as associate board members. What else have we achieved this year? For the first time ever in the history of the organization, we were able to award research funding totaling $100,000 as we funded 2 early career research awards. That is certainly something to be proud of. On the advocacy front on the state level, super honored and excited to share that we have grown our CMV Community Alliance program, which you may know as the CCAs, to 23 chairs in 18 states in just 4 years. That is awesome and something we should certainly be proud of. Now, you may be wondering, what is the impetus or the why behind our work? There are so many things that goes on behind closed doors. We get so many messages and emails facilitating or asking for help in facilitating support, educational materials and resources, families who are just hearing of a CMV diagnosis for the first time and have nowhere to turn. That is our why. That is what drives the work of the staff and the board as a whole. But I can show you better than I can tell you. Please stay tuned and watch this family video series of compilations and stories as they share their journey along the CMV Odyssey.
I had my CMV baby in November of 2018. We had no idea that he was sick, and we didn't find out until day 3 of life that he had CMV. He was born with high drops at only 2 pounds, 5 ounces. And then he was just a very, very sick baby. He was intubated, and he ended up passing away in January of 2019.
So I'd heard a little bit about CMV, but actually when I brought that test to the attention of the OB, she said, those are so rare, I don't know that we need to have that test.
So right away, the NICU knew what was going on. She presented very symptomatically with petechiae, and she had bruising all over, and her eyes were bloodshot. So we went in to see her later that night. It was the first time I saw her, and they again said, we think it's congenital cytomegalovirus.
And in the ultrasound, they didn't really tell me what was going on. They were just kind of looking over her brain real in detail. And then they called me about a week after that, and they said, we need to schedule another ultrasound because the ventricles in her brain were measuring too big.
Throughout the rest of the pregnancy, there were a couple of things that came up, especially towards the end of the pregnancy, because I did have repeated ultrasounds, but they were all kind of dismissed as being physiologic.
When I went to my follow-up doctor's appointment at 6 weeks, my pediatrician said, I went back and I looked in my medical books, and I guess I did hear about CMV in medical school, but just a very little bit, and I had never seen it before. And by that time, 6 weeks in, I had learned quite a lot about CMV, and my thought was, you've seen it a lot of times, and unfortunately, you don't know about it. And I wish that pediatricians did know about it.
Daisy is 8 years old and she attends a mainstream school. She uses bilateral cochlear implants and participates very actively in her school. Her late identification of her hearing loss and then some other complications have led to a lot of speech problems. So Daisy goes early to school twice a week to go to speech, and then once a week goes to private speech lessons after school. Other than that, it's a pretty typical childhood now. Coming a long way from when we were going to therapies a lot more often.
My biggest challenge with Jackson, he's big. He's my big baby. To me, he's a regular baby. To me, he just can't talk and walk. So really, communication, of course, when he's hurting, you want to know what's wrong. You don't want to have to guess. So that's kind of hard.
So my daughter's developed very slowly. She's now 6 years old. She doesn't walk. She doesn't talk. She can't really hold up her own head. So we have all of the therapies. She has speech, she has feeding, she has OT, she has PT. She started kindergarten this year. It is not unusual for us to have 5 to 10 appointments every week that she goes to. But sounds cliche to say this, but she really is the light of our life. There's so much that can be learned from somebody who has so little to give, and she just is happy all the time.
Just be real with your patients. It's not your job to make them feel better about their pregnancy. Pregnancies are complicated, and nothing you can say to them is going to change that. And one of the complications is that there is this very common virus that's out there, and it can be devastating. And talk about the guilt that women may feel if they don't, they take behavioral precautions and they don't kiss their toddlers on the mouth. Well, that's nothing in comparison to the guilt that you feel when your child is born with CMV and permanently severely disabled because you didn't know, nobody told you not to do those things. It pales in comparison.
Not knowing about CMV before I got pregnant or even during my pregnancy was really frustrating. When we did start learning about it, I remember just wondering how it is that it's so common and that it affects so many babies and women just aren't told about it. It just seems like there's almost work to keep women away from that knowledge, which doesn't make sense, and it doesn't seem respectful to women. They're not given this opportunity to protect their babies.
I would like for there to be acknowledgement given to the fact that universal precautions can help prevent and or significantly decrease the rates of transmission of congenital CMV. We could save babies so easily with an awareness campaign, and I'd really, really wish that everybody would get on board with that messaging.
A cure, a vaccine, obviously awareness. I think awareness is key to developing a vaccine, because I think it kind of all boils down to, is there enough money to fund the research to get the vaccine? And I think it starts with awareness.
Congenital CMV is the most common infectious cause of birth defects in the United States, and 91% of women don't know about it. Spread the word, not the virus. Ask your doctor about CMV and visit nationalcmv.org to learn more.
Well, I heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord. But you don't really care for music, do you? Well, it goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, the major lift, the battle king composing hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Well, your faith was strong, but you needed proof. You saw her bathing on the roof, her beauty in the moonlight overthrew you. Well, she tied you to a kitchen chair, she broke your throne, she cut your hair, and from your lips she drew the hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Now maybe there's a God above, but all I've ever learned from love is how to shoot somebody who outdrew you. Well, it's not a cry that you hear at night, it's not somebody who's seen the light, it's a call that it's a broken hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. I did my best, it wasn't much. I couldn't feel, so I tried to touch. I told the truth, I didn't come to fool you. And now, even though it all went wrong, I'll stand before the Lord a song with nothing on my tongue but hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
I hope you enjoyed that video and learned a little bit more about what our driving force is behind the great work that we do, firsthand from those families. Now, I am super honored and excited to introduce someone I've grown to know and love dearly, and someone I'm proud to call friend. Kristen Hutchison Spytek, co-founder of the National CMV Foundation. As I mentioned earlier, Kristen co-founded the organization along with her husband, John, in honor of their daughter, Evelyn Grace. Kristen has worn many hats with the foundation as a whole, as I'm sure many of you are familiar with her name and her wonderful work. She's our immediate past president, board chair. She served as program director. She did executive director duties. Kristen has done it all and done it well. Kristen, thank you, thank you, thank you for your persistent, consistent dedication and support to see this organization thrive and grow. I honor you and I thank you for your hard work and service. Today, Kristen is the founder of SpyTech Consulting, which works with a variety of organizations to strengthen their operations, increase brand perception, and deliver social impact. A marketer by trade, I call her a marketing guru, Kristen has served in several capacities in the marketing space as a client service executive. Again, Kristen, thank you so much for your hard work. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Hi, I'm Kristen Spytek, the president and co-founder of National CMV Foundation. We founded this organization in 2014 after my daughter Evelyn was born in March 2013, severely impacted by congenital CMV. At the time, my husband and I were reeling. We could not find information on the internet or even in talking to our healthcare providers. It seemed that access and resources were extremely limited, and we were very frustrated by the lack of information available to consumers and patients on the web. And as a marketer by day, I decided this is a problem, and an awareness problem at that we can help determine a solve for. And so my husband and I created the National CMV Foundation in 2014 to bring access and resources to consumers, to patients, to women of childbearing age to learn more about the risks and prevention methods associated with congenital CMV. In 2015, I had the privilege of working with several other like-minded women who were also doing advocacy efforts in their regions. And in December of 2015, we decided to merge forces and join up and create one umbrella organization under National CMV Foundation. These women have been inspiring and motivating for me and for others. And with all of our shared expertise in navigating these journeys, we were able to bring something really meaningful together. And I'm very proud to say that throughout the last 9 years, we have grown from a one-man or a 6-person co-founder team to a small but mighty team of 12 board of directors, 5 staff, and additional consultants, constituents, contractors, volunteers, an associate board, a group of community alliance chairs in various states and regions around the U.S., and a very distinguished scientific advisory committee that helps us prioritize our research agenda and much, much more. I am so grateful to the community that works with us day in and day out. I have been privileged to serve as the chairperson of the National CMV Foundation for the last 9 years, and also leading day-to-day operations as the executive director informally and formally for the last 7 years. This organization and the cause means so much to me personally and to my family and friends. And I am just grateful for all of the contributions, the energy spent, the awareness raised, the conversations had, and the events that people continue to show up for time and time again. Thank you. I have such an amazing tall order vision for this organization, and I have no doubt that we can accomplish it. There are so many things that I think we can do in order to save babies and to provide equitable access for women of childbearing age and their families. I do think that viral infections are a tremendous cause of uncertainty and fear, and we are doing our best to help combat that. We want to aid in the woman's journey. We do not want to scare her, but we want to provide her with information so she can help take preventative measures before and during pregnancy. There are also many things that can be done postnatally, including antiviral treatment, early intervention, access to additional therapists, doctors, providers that are very, very important. And a congenital CMV diagnosis will help with these referrals. We are moving towards universal newborn screening, which is something extremely important to me. And we are working on a vaccine that we feel very strongly will help prevent babies being born with disabilities due to congenital CMV. We won't stop until we have a public health campaign that we feel strongly about and we can minimize the number of babies born with developmental outcomes that are significant. They are considerable birth defects or death and disability due to congenital CMV. Where do I see the foundation in 10 years? I think we are going to be federally funded for a multi-year, high-scale, high-yield research investment that will effectively work towards preventing congenital CMV in babies. And the goal for that is that we reduce death and disability due to congenital CMV for future generations. I see a vaccine in market. I see universal newborn screening approved through the RUSP and implemented at the state level for the majority of the states. I see public health campaign being rolled out in terms of educational resources in providers' offices. I see continuing education for providers and clinicians so they are up to speed on diagnosis, treatment, interventions, etc. I see CMV being a common thing to think about and look for and talk about prenatally and postnatally amongst consumers and the public. I think it will be a household term, and I hope all of this equates to saving babies and improving outcomes. Dr. Megan Pesch is an assistant professor of developmental and behavioral pediatrics at the University of Michigan, where she serves as the director of the Congenital CMV Developmental Follow-Up Clinic. She has served as the president-elect of the National CMV Foundation for the past 2 years and is involved in national advocacy efforts to improve newborn CMV screening. Her clinical interests include the early diagnosis and treatment of congenital CMV using a multidisciplinary approach with a focus on family care and support. Dr. Pesch's research focuses on healthcare provider practices around congenital CMV diagnosis and management, and understanding the relationship between autism and CMV. Most importantly, she is the mother to 3 little girls, her youngest of whom has profound bilateral sensorineural hearing loss due to congenital CMV. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce our incoming president, Dr. Megan Pesch.
Hello, my name is Dr. Megan Pesch. I'm a developmental and behavioral pediatrician at the University of Michigan, and I am thrilled to introduce myself as the president of the National CMV Foundation. I have some big shoes to fill. We all just heard from Kristen Spytek, who, along with the other co-founders, is the reason that we are all here today. Over the last 8 to 9 years, Kristen, the other co-founders, countless families, volunteers, researchers, clinicians, nonprofits, and industry partners, the footprint of the organization, the foundation, has grown exponentially. I'm coming into this position at a very exciting time. There are more and more states, it seems like every few months, with legislation backing newborn congenital CMV screening. In addition, there are countless other health systems and hospitals who are introducing programs to screen their babies for congenital CMV, not only because of legislation, but because it's the right thing to do. We are seeing game-changing screening and diagnostic platforms or tests coming on the market being cleared through the FDA. We have a swell in interest from public health professionals, but also healthcare professionals wanting to know more about how to prevent CMV, how to diagnose, and how to care for pregnant women and then infants affected by congenital CMV. We also have several state-level pilots going on, gathering data for national-level policy recommendations. And finally, vaccine trials well on their way with the goal of preventing congenital CMV. I am committed as the new president to keep the momentum going. I'm motivated to serve in this role by the families and the patients that I work with. I have been on the board of directors for the last 3 years and involved in the scientific advisory committee here at the National CMV Foundation. Also in my clinical work, I have had the pleasure of working with dozens of families and their kids. Gosh, these CMV families, they are resilient, they are dedicated, generous, and just seem to have this limitless capacity to give not only to their kids, but to the greater community and the foundation as well. I'm also motivated by our kids. I mean, gosh, these CMV kids, they are sweet, silly, sassy, adventurous, clever, many of whom, have showed us as parents how to, really live life in the present, to appreciate the beauty in the small moments. And, even gaining insight into, what it means to really love with your whole heart. Our kids are amazing. And I say that, and I want to clarify, it's not in spite of disabilities that they may have. It's, because of those disabilities and the people, the whole people that they are. I'm also motivated by families, those families with holes in their hearts, who have lost pregnancies, infants, and children to congenital CMV. This virus is nasty. And I want to say to those families that I see you, we see you. And as a foundation, we are committed to preventing pregnancy loss, miscarriage, infant and child death from this virus. It is something that we all need to talk about more and work towards, not even to quantify, to make sure that people know, hey, this is really happening, and the impact, the true impact of this virus, throughout the lifespan. I'm one of the lucky ones. My daughter, Odessa, is 4 years old now, and she was born with congenital CMV. I'm lucky because I'm raising her and she's still with us and, bringing, so much light and joy into our lives. But, she's like any child, I guess I should say. She, has her challenges. I'll share with you a little bit about our story. So before Odessa was born, in my clinical work, I cared for kids with developmental disabilities, autism, kids that were at high risk for behavioral or developmental concerns later on in life. When Odessa was born, so she's my third girl, and I had a seemingly normal pregnancy. She was born after a bit of a rough delivery, but her APGAR scores were fine. She cried, she nursed, it was really like all anyone could ask for. And I mention her rough delivery because she was born with some petechiae, or little kind of purpley spots on her face. And those can happen, after a delivery. But, now, as many of us know, they do also happen with congenital CMV. Odessa failed her newborn hearing screen, but I was reassured by the nurses and audiology technicians that it was likely a false positive. And it's true. Throughout my career, I had reassured dozens of anxious parents that, likely it's fluid in their ears, and that when we went back to rescreen their hearing, it would be normal. That wasn't the case for Odessa. At 2.5 months, when we went back in for her screening, her hearing repeat screening, we found out that she had complete or profound bilateral hearing loss. And it was a bit of a long journey, but we did eventually find out that that was due to congenital CMV. I was staring at this beautiful baby for 2.5 months with all my experience and training, and congenital CMV did not cross my mind. So, hindsight is 20/20. In retrospect, it makes sense, but it's hard for me to blame or be mad at the physicians who cared for her, because really, looking back at the system, there were so many
flaws, so many ways that she was missed. And I think we really need to work on changing the system, educating our healthcare providers, and educating, pregnant people and families about this virus.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. This year, the National CMV Foundation was proud to honor for the first time 2 wonderful CMV advocates with the Spirit of Advocacy Award and the Professional Impact Award. These awards were presented at the CMV Public Health and Policy Conference in August. The Spirit of Advocacy Award is given to an individual or family who has been impacted by congenital CMV. The recipient has demonstrated dedication to CMV advocacy efforts nationally or locally in their home state. Recipients have used their personal struggles with CMV to advocate for CMV education, awareness, and/or policy change in an effort to prevent pregnancy loss, childhood death, and disability due to congenital CMV. This year's recipient was Laura Sweet, a parent advocate from Maine. Laura began her advocacy work in 2016 after attending the CMV Public Health and Policy Conference in Austin, Texas. She was inspired by her daughter Jane, who was born with CMV, to work with her elected officials and pass CMV legislation in Maine in 2017. Laura continued to work with her elected officials and state health department to determine that the legislation passed originally was not going to be as impactful as they had hoped. She continued to advocate, and Maine ultimately passed more substantial CMV legislation in 2022, which will provide CMV education and targeted screening with the requirement to put in place plans to screen every baby in the state. Laura is truly the embodiment of passion and tenacity. Next, we were proud to present the Professional Impact Award. The Professional Impact Award is given to an individual or group who has utilized their clinical, scientific, or professional expertise to increase the awareness of CCMV and its impact through research, awareness, or educational efforts. The recipient may be a physician, a researcher, or a public health or allied health professional. This year, we were thrilled to present this award to Dr. Mark Schleiss. Mark has spent over 30 years as a caring practitioner, providing sound medical advice and hope to families dealing with a congenital CMV diagnosis. Mark has also spent decades advocating for CMV awareness and research. Together with the CDC, he is spearheading a universal study using the dried blood spot to screen babies for CMV. Mark's work and advocacy greatly contributed to the passing of the VIVIN Act in 2021 after many years of hard work. He then worked with the Minnesota Newborn Screening Panel to discuss the addition of CCMV to the state blood spot panel, and work is now underway to begin screening all newborns in Minnesota for CMV in 2023. Minnesota will become the first state in the United States to screen every baby, and Mark's role in this achievement cannot be overstated. Please join us in congratulating Laura and Mark. Next up, we would like to show another video compilation telling the stories of families who have been impacted by congenital CMV. Although each story is different, they all demonstrate the need for increased CMV research, risk reduction, and screening. Thank you to all these families for sharing your story.
Everything was normal for me until I went for my just regular scans. My OBGYN told me, she said, he's got a little bit of fluid on his brain. She wasn't concerned. She said, we see this sometimes. She said, and most of the time it fixes itself. I knew something was wrong. It was my first pregnancy. We had prayed for this baby and prayed for this baby. And I just knew something was wrong.
At the 36-week ultrasound, they noticed at that point that the head was disproportionately small, which hadn't been flagged earlier. So the biggest red flag was that small head size. And then when I gave birth to Anna, my daughter, she was small for gestational age. She was 5 pounds at 40 weeks and failed her hearing tests. And CMV was never mentioned despite those 2 signs of CMV.
The results of the MRI were inconclusive. She had some cysts, which they said were consistent with a torch infection, is what the report said. At the time, I asked if there were any other tests we needed to do and what that meant, and there wasn't any follow-up on that. I didn't know then that when they talk about torch screening and torch infections, that CMV is the C in torch. So we had a lot of different residents and a lot of different doctors every day in our room multiple times. And many times I said, do you think there's any connection between the abnormal MRI and her not passing her hearing? And no one ever made that connection.
I had heard of CMV. I'm a nurse by trade, so when I heard that name, a bell rang in the back of my head, and I thought, I've heard of this before, but I do not think that I ever realized the impact, how common it is, and just how devastating it can be until I was diagnosed, or we were diagnosed.
It's not part of the lexicon that we're taught as pregnant women in terms of avoiding, common things like sushi and alcohol, and now, being told to cancel trips and avoid mosquitoes. That's the narrative that we follow, not that our toddlers could be carrying something.
All of this was so new to us. We'd never heard of CMV. We had no idea how it could affect our baby until, she was here in front of us. So it's been a challenge to digest all of that and care for her and our other two small children, with just the unknowns. So.
Typical week, it's pretty busy. My husband and I both work full time. She has a lot of daily cares that are not typical for a 3-year-old. So we're still having to give her a bottle 3 times a day. We're still washing bottles 3.5 years later. And we have to give her period food from a pouch. That's how she takes the other part of her daily nutrition.
We had difficulties his first 2 years, really his whole life, but it's gotten easier now. He's had neuro problems and pulmonary problems due to the CMV, like cerebral palsy, and aspiration pneumonia, and dystonia. Right now, Jackson is 3. And of course, we still deal with the same things, but it's gotten much better. And I'm hoping it continues to get better with therapy, keeping up with doctor's appointment, maintaining medications, making sure they're right.
I feel like the hardest thing for me is to focus on her and enjoy the moment rather than worrying about what could happen or what might happen, just because of the unknown.
I would like doctors to provide women with foundational information regarding congenital CMV. I believe women have a right to know what can affect them in their pregnancy and then do with that information as they choose. We talk about toxoplasmosis, we talk about rubella, we talk about Down syndrome and spina bifida and fetal alcohol syndrome and all of these things that have less prevalence than congenital CMV.
Being aware that it's a ubiquitous virus, it's in nearly 1 out of 3 toddlers, is something that we have a right to know. And women can choose from there how they go about avoiding it or kissing their kids on the head. But I think the withholding of information is denying us a basic human right.
This is something that's so common, yet no one I've talked to has ever heard of it. It blows my mind that people don't know about CMV. And even our physician was just, he did research after my daughter was born, and he started to learn a little bit more, but there's still so much to be done.
Congenital CMV is the most common infectious cause of birth defects in the United States, and 91% of women don't know about it. Spread the word, not the virus. Ask your doctor about CMV and visit nationalcmv.org to learn more.
No, I won't back down. No, I won't back down. You can stand me up at the gates of hell, but I won't back down. Gonna stand my ground. this world from pushing me around. Gonna stand my ground, and I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Hey, I will stand my ground, and I won't back down. Well, I know what's right. I got just one life in a world that keeps on pushing me around. Gonna stand my ground, and I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Hey, I will stand my ground, and I won't back down. No, I won't back down.
Thank you all for attending today's virtual celebration. To all of our donors who's given $5, $10, $500, higher, smaller, every bit counts and matters. And I thank you for your financial contribution and support. To our wonderful CMV Partnership Alliance members, all of our CMV partners, those working alongside us to continue the work of the foundation and to increase awareness of congenital CMV, thank you so, so much. Again, to all of our donors, partners, sponsors, to our host for today's or our sponsor for today's virtual celebration, Moderna, thank you for being a long-standing partner of the foundation and for continuing to believe in and support the work and mission of the foundation. Thank you to all of you who are viewing this. Thank you again for your continual support. And we look forward to doing even more in 2023 and beyond with your contributions, with your support, with your volunteerism. Thank you so very much. Now that we come to the end of our virtual celebration, I want to say first, thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you enjoyed today's celebration and learned quite a bit about the work of the foundation and what's on the horizon. Secondly, I want to remind you that it is certainly not too late to give to support the work and cause and mission of the foundation. You can give in a variety of ways. You can certainly mail in a payment or safely make your payment online via our website. If you go to nationalcmv.org, you'll click on the Get Involved page. Immediately under that, you'll see that Donate button. Click on Donate. You're able to make your donation securely. Again, remember to stay abreast of all of our upcoming wonderful events and activities via our social media channels. You can certainly subscribe to our newsletter as well if you prefer more of a compilation of what's coming up the pipeline, what's coming up ahead. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to working alongside you to continue the great work of the organization. Have a wonderful day, and thank you for celebrating this year with us.